Started kinda over my head, I guess. Looks like looks like you can hear me. If there were anyone watching this, I'd be able to out, but there's not. Let's say there's not yet. Now, you might not be able to hear me right now. I'm listening to architects. It's also what I do all day. But I would rather listen to G.K. Chesterton, as I hope you are here to do. We've read chapters 1 and 2, including, I believe, the preface, which I think is sort of chapter 1. Guess I didn't read the preface. I might read it at the end. Welcome to all of you who are present live. It's nobody at the moment. Chapter 3, The Suicide of Thought. The phrases of the street are not only forcible, but subtle, for a figure of speech can often get into a crack too small for a definition. Phrases like put out or off color might have been coined by Mr. Henry James in an agony of verbal precision. And there is no more subtle truth than that of the everyday phrase about a man having his heart in the right place. It involves the idea of normal proportion. Not only does a certain function exist, but it is rightly related to other functions. Indeed, the negation of this phrase would describe with peculiar accuracy the somewhat morbid mercy and perverse tenderness of the most representative moderns. If, for instance, I had to describe with fairness the character of Mr. Bernard Shaw, I could not express myself more exactly than by saying that he has a heroically large and generous heart, but not a heart in the right place. And this is so of the typical society of our time. The modern world is not evil. In some ways, the modern world is far too good. It's full of wild and wasted virtues. When a religious scheme is shattered, as Christianity was shattered at the Reformation, it is not merely the vices that are let loose. The vices are indeed let loose, and they wander and do damage, but the virtues are let loose also, and the virtues wander more wildly, and the virtues do more terrible damage. The modern world is full of the old Christian virtues gone mad. The virtues have gone mad because they have been isolated from each other and are wandering alone. Thus, some scientists care for truth, and their truth is pitiless. Thus, some humanitarians only care for pity, and their pity, I'm sorry to say, is often untruthful. For example, Mr. Blatchford attacks Christianity because he's mad on one Christian virtue, the merely mystical, almost irrational virtue of charity. He has a strange idea that it will make it easier to forgive sins by saying that there are no sins to forgive. Mr. Blatchford is not only an early Christian, he is the only early Christian who ought really to have been eaten by lions. For in his case, the pagan accusation is really true. His mercy would mean mere anarchy. He really is the enemy of the human race because he is so human. As the other extreme, we may take the acrid realist who has deliberately killed in himself all human pleasure in happy tales or in the healing of the heart. Torquemada tortured people physically for the sake of moral truth. Zola tortured people morally for the sake of physical truth. But in Torquemada's time, there was at least a system that could, to some extent, make righteousness and peace kiss each other. Now they do not even bow. But a much stronger case than these two of truth and pity can be found in the remarkable case of the dislocation of humility. It is only with one aspect of humility that we are here concerned. Humility was largely meant as a restraint upon the arrogance and infinity of the appetite of man. He was always outstripping his mercies with his own newly invented needs. His very power of enjoyment destroyed half his joys. By asking for pleasure, he lost the chief pleasure, for the chief pleasure is surprise. Hence, it became evident that if a man would make his world large, he must always be making himself small. Even the haughty visions, the tall cities, and the towering pinnacles, or the toppling pinnacles, are the creations of humility. Giants that tread down forests like grass are the creations of humility. Towers that vanish upwards like above the loneliest star are the creation of humility. For towers are not tall unless we look up at them, and giants are not giant unless they are larger than we. All this gigantesque imagination, which is perhaps the mightiest of the pleasures of man, is at bottom entirely humble. It is impossible without humility to enjoy anything, even pride. But what we suffer from today is humility in the wrong place. Modesty has moved from the organ of ambition. Modesty has settled upon the organ of conviction, where it was never meant to be. A man was never meant to be a man was meant to be doubtful about himself, but undoubting about the truth. This has been exactly reversed. Nowadays, the part of a man that a man does assert is exactly the part he ought not to assert, himself. The part he doubts is exactly the part he ought not to doubt, the divine reason. Huxley preached the humility content to learn from nature, but the new skeptic is so humble that he doubts if he can even learn. Thus, we should be wrong if we had said hastily that there is no humility typical of our time. The truth is that there is a real humility typical of our time, but it so happens that it is practically a more poisonous humility than the wildest prostrations of the ascetic. The old humility was a spur that prevented a man from stopping, and not a nail in his boot that prevented him from going on. For the old humility might make a man doubtful about his efforts, which might make him work harder. But the new humility makes a man doubtful about his aims, which will make him stop working altogether. Any street corner. At any street corner, we may meet a man who utters the frantic and blasphemous statement that he may be wrong. Every day, one comes across somebody who says that, of course, his view might not be the right one. Of course, his view must be the right one, or it is not his view. We're on the road to producing a race of men too mentally modest to believe in the multiplication table. We are in danger of seeing philosophers who doubt the law of gravity as being a mere fancy of their own. Scoffers of old time were too proud to be convinced, but these are too humble to be convinced. The meek do inherit the earth, but the modern skeptics are too meek even to claim their inheritance. This is exactly the intellectual helplessness, which is our second problem. The last chapter has been concerned only with the fact of observation, that what peril of morbidity there is for man comes rather from his reason than his imagination. It was not meant to attack the authority of reason. Rather, it is the ultimate purpose to defend it, for it needs defense. The whole modern world is at war with reason, and the tower already reels. The sage, it is often said, can see no answer to the riddles of religion. But the trouble with our sages is that they cannot even see the answer. It's not that they cannot see the answer, it's that they cannot even see the riddle. They're like children, so stupid as to notice nothing paradoxical about the playful assertion that a door is not a door. The modern latitudinarians speak, for instance, about authority in religion, not only as if there were no reason for it, but as if there were never any reason for it. Apart from seeing its philosophical basis, they cannot even see its historical cause. Religious authority has often, doubtless, been oppressive or unreasonable, just as every legal system, and especially our present one, has been callous and full of cruel apathy. It is rational to attack the police, nay, it is glorious. But the modern critics of religious authority are like men who the modern critics but the modern critics of but the modern critics of religious authority are like men who should attack the police without ever having heard of burglars. For there is a great and possible peril to the human mind, a peril as practical as burglary. Against it, religious authority was reared, rightly or wrongly, as a barrier. And against it, something certainly must be reared as a barrier if our race is to avoid ruin. That peril is that the human intellect is free to destroy itself. Just as one generation could prevent the very existence of the next generation by all entering a monastery or jumping into the sea, so one set of thinkers can in some degree prevent further thinking by by teaching the next generation that there is no validity in any human thought. I'm going to end the live right now. I'm not feeling great, and my whole family's been sick, so I'll come back maybe.